Welcome to Inspiration Contagion, where we spread inspiration one story at a time. I am your host, Holly Jean Jackson. Each interview spotlights transformational business leaders, their stories, challenges, and advice for how you too can lead yourself and others through inspiration. Learn how you too can achieve peak performance, build more revenue, and lead the legacy you were meant to lead. Welcome back to episode 113. As this episode goes live, we are coming upon Christmas, so happy Merry Christmas. If you celebrate that kind of holiday, if you're somewhere else in the world, I hope you are looking forward to a fruitful and productive 2025. This week, I have a special guest. His name is Glenn Rudin, and he is a high energy sales and marketing coach and business consultant, which, by the way, is really important because a lot of our clients, we were just talking about this, need the consulting help so that they can actually get the work done. So that's really unique. He has over 35 years of diverse experience with a focus on consumer packaged goods. He specialized in messaging, both verbal and nonverbal, and branding, which, by the way, is super important. Just had a call with a client today about that. He helps business owners, entrepreneurs, and students clearly understand the value they provide, and then helps them distill that value into clear, concise messages, words via marketing materials, pitches, websites, and on social media platforms. That is the world of marketing today. In order to attract potential clients to build their businesses or potential employers to build their careers. With that, welcome, Glenn.
Thank you so much, Holly Jean. I appreciate that. And I appreciate your letting me know that this will actually come out during the holidays. So happy holidays, whatever holidays you are celebrating, and Happy New Year too, because it's that time of the year. And I hope that everybody out there is finding peace and joy in whatever you are celebrating. But it's great to be here with you. What a celebration for me. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. And kind of really neat that we're doing this during the holidays, recording this. And this is really special when we talk about inspiration, we talk about revenue, we talk about peak performance. What a perfect time of the year to think about that. So my first question for you is, what makes you an inspirational leader, or what's your secret sauce?
Well, the secret sauce for me, number one, is intentionally listening. Whether it's listening to a client or a potential client, my ears, Holly Jean, are always open to take in the information that I'm hearing so that I can process it and let the people I get the privilege of coming in contact with know that either what they're saying does or doesn't resonate with me and their potential audience. And it's the secret sauce. It's this skill that I have to be able to do that, to just be able to listen to somebody really quickly, take a look at the market that they are endeavoring to build their business in, and immediately understand the shortcomings they may have, the things that they are not doing, and provide that value for them. It's a gift that I have, and I love providing it because I know that it makes my potential client or just the person I'm on an introductory call with feel better about what they're doing. And of course, when you're doing nice things like that for other people, it feels good for you as well. So I'm lucky I'm in this space where what I get to do makes me feel good about the people that I'm getting to do it for. And I think that that's a lot of it. That's what makes me so enthusiastic about this. And so the secret sauce is this ability to be able to do that and the passion to be able to do it with.
I love that. You're like the ghost whisperer of messaging and branding. And what a gift that is. I will say that when I speak with folks on networking calls or elevator pitches or at conferences, so many people, when you ask them what they do not have clear, concise, or sizzle answers that actually make you lean in and want to ask more questions. And what's really, really sad to me is that their potential client or potential collaboration partner is standing right in front of them. And so they're leaving a ton of profit on the table, which is why what Glenn does is so invaluable, meaningful, impactful, and important. So if you're listening to this and you're struggling with your messaging or your branding, you should 100% reach out to him to get some help and insights on what those gaps might be in your business. Now, we're going to switch gears just slightly. And I want to ask you, what does inspiration mean to Glenn?
Well, inspiration to me means you wake up every day and you feel good about what you're doing and you can't wait to do it some more. I hate when I hear people who, have this, maybe they call it, Debbie Downer or Dick Downer, whatever. And they just don't want to be doing what they're doing. They're unhappy with it. They don't really see the purpose in it. And to me, when people see what I do and they hear me do my elevator pitch or they hear me tell a story, then I know it's inspirational to them. And what I try to let people know, Holly Jean, is listen, you might not be as good an orator as me or Holly Jean or the most famous Tony Robbins type people that you see out there, but you can be so much better. You could be so efficient, even at the level that you're at, so that when you speak your truth, your value into the world, people resonate with it. And there's no greater feeling. I tell this to a lot of the students that I work with. There's just no greater feeling than when you stand up in front of a group and you speak about a topic that you're passionate about, whether it's your business, a charity, something that you're involved in that you want other people to be involved in, and you can see the recognition, people are hearing it and you're making a connection with them. To me, that is so inspirational. And so I try to let everybody that I know, listen, maybe you're not where I am right now, but I know I can work with you. I know you can get to a level where you'll be proud, where you know you'll be understood. And to me, it's all about inspiring people to make them realize that they actually can do this themselves.
Yeah, no, it's really important. One of the gifts that I think Glenn and I both share is a gift around words, and we work with them in different ways. So I'll work with speakers on how they're going to do their speech, how they do their opening, their closing, how they share their stories, how they do their marketing, right? And I think the most important piece that you shared that I love about your definition of inspiration is allowing folks to discover their superpower and their passion, right? And what their legacy is ultimately on this planet to do. And then equipping them with the tools, which part of it is the messaging, part of it is their story, part of it is for speakers, how to do that on stage in a way that shows them how to shine with their light, their specific gift. And why that's so important is because there are so many people in the world suffering and struggling with the pain point that you, the listener today, solves. You have that gift. And so, why would you not want to have all the tools, all of the things in your toolkit, like working with Glenn, like working with all these experts that can help you best position your gift and superpower? Like, so powerful. Now,
Yeah.
Glenn, did you have something
No,
to
go
add?
ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So I wanted to shift gears just a little bit since we're kind of talking about getting them into their superpower, but I want to talk about peak performance and how we can even optimize that further. How would you define peak performance and how did you arrive at this definition today?
Well, so to me, peak performance is number one, knowing what your zone of genius is, really understanding what your true value is. Because, Holly Jean, I think so many people that I come in contact with are doing things that are not their superpower. They're doing something that they think they need to do to please somebody else, and they're not necessarily tuned in to what they should be doing because they really haven't taken the time to figure that out. They really haven't taken the time to see what the true value is that they provide in the world. And very often people will go through entire careers not really realizing this. They'll open businesses and not be successful at them because the things that they're in are something that they read about or heard about or were trendy that they got themselves involved in. But they didn't necessarily tap into what these people were really passionate about, what they really loved, what they really should be doing. And so, one of the things I love doing with people, I've created this really mini acronym for the word why, for the letters Y, WHY. What happened to you? What happened to you along the way in your life? What was a profound moment that something happened to you and you thought, wow, yeah, maybe this is something that I should be involved in? Now, a lot of times people forget those moments. They don't realize that they went on in their lives. And it's only through going through that exercise that I can get them to actually tap into that And then they begin to see it and they're like, oh, I always was interested in that. But till I went through this exercise with you, I didn't realize why. And turns out I really am passionate about that topic. And it's something that I really would love to do to make money or to help people or as a next step in my career. So it's really, really invaluable, I think, for people to understand what their genius is, what their value is. And very often it's hard to see that for yourself. And that's why it's important to seek out somebody who can actually help you tap into that so that going forward, you immediately start considering that and getting intentional about it and saying, going forward, I might not be able to do it tomorrow. I might not be able to do it next week, but I'm now going to have the intention of building this into what I do because I know I feel so strongly about it. I really want to help other people with it.
Yeah, I really love that, especially given the time of the year this episode is coming out. So, for our listeners, my challenge to you, if you decide to accept this challenge, is just what Glenn shared. Take out a journal, reflect, and if you don't like writing, fine, use an audio voice recorder, but get away from distractions. Go on a walk, go outside, go to a garden. If it's cold outside, fine, go to your favorite coffee shop and write down those moments where you had that spark of inspiration, that spark of intuition, that spark of knowingness that this is why you're here. And it might go all the way back to childhood. Like I know for me, when I was a little girl, I won a lot of writing awards, and I knew since I was very little that I was going to write a book. And since then I've now this is so funny to say. I'm actually a 3-time best-selling author now. That's kind of feels weird to say because it feels very real, like I have arrived. But going back to my childhood, that was something that was a spark for me. And interestingly enough, I also knew when I was really young I wanted to have my own business. But then I went on a really roundabout, windy journey to get there and had a career for 12 years in corporate America, climbed the ladder, went all the way to the top, and realized a pattern of I hate this. This is not for
Mm,
me. This is toxic for my health and my system. And after you guys, 4 layoffs in corporate America, plus challenging health things left, and now I do what I love. So, for our listeners, Glenn and I don't want you to have that experience. We want you to shortcut that and get back into your zone of genius, discover your superpower because the world needs it. And if you need help with that, Glenn has this tool you can start with on your own. And if you want help navigating that, you can reach out to Glenn, and his information will be in this episode so that you can get back. Because what's the best gift this holiday is like knowing your legacy, knowing that superpower and how to position that. It's so cool.
And that you're
Now,
also going to make a change in the new
yeah,
year, right? You're not
yeah.
going to continue running on the same hamster wheel for another year saying, I wish I did this. I wish I changed that. I wish I wasn't in this job. I wish I started my business. Stop with the I wishes and start to really take action for yourself. It's a great time when you're turning the page on a year where you can look back and say, right, you know what? I decided that I'm going to start this new year and I'm actually going to do something different. It's not a resolution. I'm making a change in my life. I'm not putting something down that I'm going to walk away from 2 months later because it just didn't happen for me. This is what I'm committed to do because I know it's one of the reasons I was put on this planet in the first place. And that's a lot more profound than just saying, I want to be able to run a 12-minute mile. Nothing wrong with having that goal. It's a great personal goal for you to have, whether it's something physical, you want to learn to play an instrument. Great, it's a great thing for you to master. But what Holly Jean and I are talking about here is something much more profound in your life. It's really tapping into the very reason for your being and where you're operating at your very best because you're tapping into the value you possess and how you can transfer that to other people. And when you figure out that that's actually worth money, it goes beyond anything you could possibly think of. I've now tapped into what my value is. I love sharing it. And because I'm so good at sharing it, people will pay me money to have access to it. It's a great feeling. And it's a great time of the year to decide that you want to put that stake in the ground.
Yeah, yeah. I will just say that I just did my annual reflections for our content planning. And I have already written all of the blogs for 2025 and put together social media outlines and emails for all of 2025 so that my assistant, who's our future CMO, has what she needs. And what's so cool is that upon doing those reflections, I achieved quite a few things on my bucket list, hit almost all of our goals. And that's because I've been doing this for so long and I'm so aligned. And when we're aligned and in that zone of genius, things flow very easily and miracles happen and you crush your goals and everybody wins.
Yeah,
So,
it doesn't
yeah.
feel like work, right? It's almost a joy to do it because you know deep down inside when you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I know I'm really good at what I do. And I know the people who are fortunate enough to soak up my content, to be trained or coached by me, to get to work in the systems that I've developed, that I know that I'm providing great value for them. It's an amazing feeling. And, when you're super organized like you, having all of 2025 already laid out for yourself, well, you can give yourself a nice long vacation right at the beginning of the year when you're that good at doing it. So I love that.
Yeah, well, I was definitely encouraged to do it so that my assistant was set up for success and so that we stopped getting behind on that. But speaking of which, I want to ask you because obviously this road to getting into your zone of genius is not perfect. What were some of your challenges and obstacles that you faced along your road to peak performance?
Right. Well, it's a great question. And for starters, like a lot of people, when I graduated from college a long, long time ago, I really didn't have great direction on what I wanted to do. I had some thoughts. My parents had some thoughts for me, but there was really more confusion. And at the time, it was really more about you have to get a job. You have to get a job. There was really no time for exploration. I think it was a different time in the world. And a lot of your value was just tied into what kind of position could you get coming out of college so that you were a stable person, you were making money, and you were starting your career. And what I associate that with, and I try to tell this to people that I work with, is if you imagine the concept of a message in a bottle, right? Someone puts that message in the bottle and then they toss it in the water, and it just kind of bobs around out there aimlessly, and maybe at some point it washes ashore. And I kind of relate that to how a lot of us go about our career choices and what we do for our livings. Because when we don't take the time to really figure out what we should be doing based on what we love, based on what we're really good at, that's what happens. And so before you know it, 5 years has transpired, 10 years has transpired, and all of a sudden, maybe like that bottle, you now wash ashore and you shake off the water and look around and you wonder, where am I? What am I doing? And how in the world did I ever get here? As opposed to somebody who actually, let's say, I know you're into kayaking, and I love that. I love doing that when I get the chance to do it, right? You know when you get in that water exactly where you want to go, Holly, and you go there, you experience it, and then you're on to whatever the next step in your journey is. Wouldn't it be so much better for you, regardless of where you are in your career, to now step on shore and decide, where do I want to land? Where is the best place for me to come ashore that's intentional so that I can get into my boat and actually go to that place as opposed to just getting in the boat and letting the tides carry me wherever I go? Because I find that most people in their careers, it's rare that people really know what they want to do. My sons, for instance, are a tremendous exception. They both wanted to be attorneys. They both wanted to go to law school. They knew that early on. They both followed that path. They both went to law school. They got out. They both have amazing jobs, working in New York City doing that. But they are the exception. Almost everybody else that I know ends up doing that floundering thing. And it's a question of how long are you going to do it? How long are you going to be in a job where you get up every day and go, why am I doing this? I don't even really like it. I don't necessarily like the people. I don't necessarily love the products that the company is selling or the value that they provide. Why not get yourself in a situation where you truly understand what you want to do and get into that canoe or kayak with great intentional purpose and do it?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I love the metaphor of the message in a bottle and the floundering. And I know for me, I would say I did some floundering, mostly, I think, because there were distractions in my personal life. And also, I think mostly, I want to just kind of give credit to folks listening that maybe you feel like you're floundering, you feel like you're that message in a bottle in the water, and you feel bad, you feel shame about that. Don't. And here's why. Our society, our educational system puts all this pressure on us, and social media doesn't make it any better. And there's still these expectations from Glenn's generation and even my generation, where we were expected to get a college degree, we were expected to have a job, we were expected to get married and have kids and all these things. So, one, I just want to say, don't feel shame in it. But if you're hearing this and your intuition and your soul, or whatever you want to call it, is like, wow, this is really aligning and I feel like I am floundering, you have the opportunity today to retreat and reflect and not ask anybody except yourself, and do that why messaging tool that Glenn shared, and really get clear on what you want to do next and what your gift is, and meditate on that, journal on that, reflect on that. Do not rush that process. And ironically enough, my second solo book that I'm very slowly working on is on clarity and legacy and leadership. That's a big book. That's why it's taking so long. And so I want you to have clarity, but I also want you to recognize that clarity is something you can have in the moment, and then all of a sudden it's fleeting because life is constantly changing. So if you're floundering today, find your clarity, but also be open to the fact that it's going to change. Your clarity will change, which is why you have to be dedicated to remaining clear throughout your career, throughout your entrepreneurship journey, all these things. But just wanted to kind of put that in there because I know I can feel a lot of guilt sometimes over that experience, but I will also share that if you are floundering today, you have not lost everything, because you learned valuable lessons and gained valuable skills in the years you put into whatever job that was. Now, let's harness that and put it in the right direction that's more intentional, like Glenn shared. Yeah.
I think that's great. And I think that along the way, if you can catalog, and this is again another exercise that I do with my clients, and I call it mining your history for storytelling gold. And that really involves not only taking the time to figure out what your true gifts are, but also taking a look back at the experiences you've had, good, bad, and different. What did you gain from those that you can bring? What perspective did you gain from those that you can bring to what you're now endeavoring to do? Because then all of those experiences were not for naught. They weren't invaluable and they weren't a waste of time. They're filling out your experience set so that when you've got a circumstance going forward and someone says, well, how do you know that's the right way? Where'd you get that perspective? You hopefully have one of these stories that you've now mined for yourself that you can tell someone and say, and see, that's what I learned. And I don't want you to have to go through that same thing that I went through.
Yeah, one thing I'll share on that before we switch to revenue is I have my clients keep story journals, because like marketing is all about the book winning the storytelling wars, but it's all about story. And if you actually have brilliant stories that, by the way, you can test them by guesting on podcasts, you can test them by speaking on stage, you can test them over coffee, where people lean in and ask you to repeat that story, that is gold. That is your storytelling gold. But you have to journal those and start sharing them to actually collect data to see what resonates with your audience and the people you want to attract. For me, that's the bear story and a lot of other stories. What is that for you? And start testing that. Now, I know we could talk about this forever. So if you have a quick thing you want to put in there before we switch to money, go for it.
No, let's switch to money. I'm all for it.
Okay, cool. Glenn, I'd love for you to share with our audience an experience where you left money on the table in your business and what you did to fix it.
Yeah. Okay. So I can relate this to something that just happened fairly recently where someone gave me a really important correction. One of the things that I was doing with people who were interested in actually hiring me was to muddle down the process by giving them too much information about what I was intending to do with them as a coach. And by doing that, I was giving them all kinds of fear about, number one, did they definitely want all these different things that I had put into this document? Were these all things that they needed help with? Or were there things there that were really overwhelming to them because there were so many things in the list? In other words, I was trying to be thorough and saying, if you work with me, these are all the things that are going to happen. And I think that some of that was overwhelming because I think a lot of times, Holly Jean, people just don't see themselves as successes until you really start working with them. So by giving them too much information, I was actually muddying up my process as opposed to just giving somebody the highlights. Of course, we're going to do this, this, and this, and then asking them if they wanted to hire me. I was putting the cart before the horse, giving them all this information that was an information overload that I think was providing more doubt to them than anything else because they didn't even know whether they needed these things or not, even though I knew they did. And I think that's one mistake, a literal mistake that I was making up until very, very recently. And the point there is to not overload your clients with too much information where it might bog them down, it might confuse them, or it might make them have second thoughts about what they're about to do, even though what you're giving them are all these good things that they're going to end up with. There's a lot of times there's an information overload. And I think in my case, I was doing that. So I was, in a sense, trying too hard by trying to show too much value to them up front.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you were vulnerable and authentic enough to share this because this is where I see so many of my clients leaving money on the table. And also, by the way, people even that I've hired, but they had enough credibility and I had to honestly just give them some nice feedback that they were open to around, hey, by the way, if you hadn't done these things, you would have lost me and here's why. And if you're open to some feedback, here's what you should be switching. So we are in an information overwhelm time in life. There's plenty of information out there. The reason people hire you is because they know you will help simplify and take the pain away and make the bridge from where you are today to where you want to be seamless, which means we are supposed to provide them with curated content, which means what are their top two things that they're trying to overcome? Yes, two things. That's it. And then you can, of course, include in your contract and much more. And there are additional bonuses we'll cover, but the two things we will 100% achieve that are the biggest things on your whatever, nice on the sales call, we will achieve. And this is a mistake I see people do time and time again. So thank you for sharing that very authentically.
Sure, sure. Listen, if it's going to help other people, I'm perfectly willing to be vulnerable from that perspective because look, this is one of the reasons why you hire a coach, right? It's one of the reasons that I'm working with somebody who's now looking over my shoulder and saying, "Oh, you didn't need to do that." Because very often, right, when you're out there and you're doing whatever you think you're doing, right, you could look at as many YouTube videos, as many how-to things as you want, as many books as you want. But very often we really do need somebody to fill in the missing pieces for us. And very often we won't know what those missing pieces are until we actually find somebody who can tell us what they are. And then, then you can make an evaluation. Okay, I know I need a coach in this area. Now let me go ahead and, so to speak, kick the tires on a couple of different coaches and see which one I feel the most comfortable with. But just to understand, it's very hard to do everything well. Maybe you're not a tech person. That's a coach that you might need. Maybe you're not a financial person. Maybe you need somebody who's a coach in the financial side of it. Maybe you're, weak in your messaging and you need somebody like me. Maybe you're somebody who's endeavoring to write a book and, or be a speaker and you want to get somebody like Holly Jean in your corner. But just know that the investment that you make there is for a lifetime. And every positive thing that comes to you as a result of making that investment was because you made that investment, as opposed to, again, just standing still or, again, being like that bottle with the message in it that's just kind of bobbing out there and doesn't really have any destination. You can almost think of a coach as a tugboat in that water that's going to grab you and pull you in the direction that you need to go, if we want to stick with some metaphors.
Yeah, amazing. Well, this has been a beautiful interview. I hope that for folks tuning in that you found this inspiring. We're going to wrap up with two rapid fire questions. What is the best one piece of advice you would share with others today?
First piece of advice is to be intentional about what you're doing. If you know you're not great at things, then you've got to get intentional about them, and you've got to really take stock and say, look, I know this is a weakness for me and I might want to run away from it, but you can't. This is the most important thing you need to work on. Get intentional about it and fix it so you can move on and not let that be the thing that's holding you back.
Beautiful. And what is the legacy you would like to leave behind?
The legacy I'd like to leave behind for everybody who's getting to hear us today, Holly Jean, is look, you can do this. You can be an author. You can be a speaker. You can be an entrepreneur and run your own business. Don't let the experiences that you've had up to now with people who didn't believe in you or give you that confidence to let that hold you back. You can do this.
Amazing. And what great timing for kicking off 2025 as our listeners tune into this. For our listeners, if you were inspired, our viewers on YouTube, our listeners on any of the channels, Glenn's information will be in the show notes or the YouTube link below. Whether you're viewing or listening, be sure to check him out, follow him on LinkedIn, check out his website. And with that, we wish you a beautiful start to your 2025. If you found this inspirational, please share it with anyone else in your community. And please give us a 5-star review. It actually helps us grow our influence and spread inspiration like a contagion. With that, thank you so much, Glenn.
My pleasure, Holly Jean. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and your audience. Happy holidays to you and to everybody that's listening. And I look forward to hearing about the great things you and all the people who are hearing us now are going to do in 2025.
Amazing. All right, listeners, we'll see you on our next episode. Thanks. Thank you for joining the show today. I hope you were inspired. More importantly, I hope you take action. If the show inspired you, I ask that you subscribe and share it with your network. Let's spread inspiration together today.